John, welcome to the show. This is super exciting. I enjoyed the few minutes of chatting before we pushed the record button. I'm tremendously excited. I'm full of energy. I'm glad you're here. So many cool things to say. So first of all, thanks for compartmentalizing some time and making time and space for me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, man. Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.
No, that's exciting. So, man, like you're up to some big shit. You're kind of a big deal, man. Like you're a huge deal, actually. To tell you the truth, I'm honored to have you here because you do so many super cool things, and I can unpack some of those, and some of them I will, and we will get into. But enough about that. I mean, I'm gonna volley it right over to you. Tell us about you. Tell the listeners who the hell you are, and why the hell you're here.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. So. My name's John Seaman. I own JC Property Professionals. We have our own podcast, Grinding for Greatness. We're trying to help right now get some awareness out in the blue collar industry that we're in. Obviously, we need some more help. We need some more leaders. We need some more laborers out here. So we're trying to get a little bit of awareness to the opportunity that comes with the blue collar industry. So we're trying to sit in front of folks like yourself that have a wide audience, and be able to talk to them, tell them our story, and maybe, attract some more talent out here.
Yeah. So when you talk about, the blue collar industry, I've heard you say that a little bit on and off, and you talk about, the blue collared millionaires. Tell us about that a little bit. And is that sort of tied into what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we're talking about. So, there's an enormous opportunity out here in the blue collar trades that's vastly overlooked. And the opportunity is really endless on the financial aspect of it, how much money you can make, the freedom that you can have. It's no one gets to see that, so we're just bringing some folks on here to talk about, the opportunities that can be had, the money that can be made, the financial freedom that you can have, the time freedom that you can have, and really the gratification of getting your hands dirty and creating things in the blue collar industry.
Yeah, so actually, I really want to pull the handbrake here and stay in this space for a second because it's so inspiring, right? I think it's shit that is overlooked, right? When we talk about construction has traditionally been sort of dirty, dark, disrespected, like sort of a less than industry, right? And that's the sort of stereotypical misconception that's been out there. And I know that, in the education system today, and not to go down this path too much, but just to pinpoint to simply saying that construction is not talked about.
It's not. Yeah.
It's really not talked about.
Yeah. And when it is talked about, it's talked down on, right?
Yeah.
I know I'm going to speak from my own experience coming through school. I was, grew up in a blue collar household. My dad did heat and air and construction and stuff my whole life. So that's what I knew. That's what I seen.
Mm-hmm.
And, coming through school, even at, an elementary school level, teachers would talk about those folks, anyone in the blue collar trades, as dirty, broken backed, not having any money, working until the day they die. So that was kind of what I, adopted in my head too, was that's not really what I want to do. I don't want to be that guy, and, I had to kind of find out for myself really what the opportunities out there were. I could kind of see it growing up, watching my dad work and the opportunities of the amount of money that he could be making. Yeah. And kind of getting into it myself and doing side gigs with him and stuff, making quick cash on the weekend or here and there, I'd seen, wow, there's a lot of money that can be made in a very short amount of time. And coupling with that is like I said, the instant gratification of the moment you're done with the project, you get to stand back and see, wow, look what I just built. If you're doing something with software or something, you don't get to see any of that really, or if you're working corporate, you don't necessarily get to see the results of the hard work that you put in every single day.
Holy shit. I'm just taking a deep breath because you know what? I resonate so deeply with that. And we share similar pathways in that regard where, I grew up in a construction household and I had the privilege and opportunity to learn about it. And it wasn't always that way. I didn't always appreciate it. That's for most certain. Yeah. Except that, you start to see, this is what's not talked about, right? Construction's like, oh, you break your back. You can break your back if you do things stupidly, if you're not, or you can learn how to do things properly. And there's a succession plan.
Yeah.
You don't have to, you start somewhere and it doesn't mean you always, you always stay there. If you choose to, that's cool. Then be the best damn person you are in that role. And if you want more, then there's a shit ton more out there.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm talking openly because we're having this great conversation. I get that. I think that other human beings out there need to hear this. There's a certain appreciation that's tangible. We're human beings. We like to touch and feel shit.
Mm-hmm.
And when stuff's built, it's like, hey man, I was a part of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey man, I was a part of that.
It's kind of a ongoing joke with everybody in the trades, that like, you're driving down the road with your kids in the car and you get to say, hey, I did that project, or I did that project, or I did the landscape over there, or I built that house, or I cut those trees, or I graded that lot, and that really is cool, man, because you get to show folks what you did. If you go sitting in an office, a 9 to 5 every day, unless someone comes into your office, and even at that point, what the fuck are you going to show them that you've done?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm laughing at you because this is real. Look, Toronto based, right? 25 years ago, there was a condo, the very first condo I ever was a part of running as a project manager from tip to tip. It was a first opportunity, 20-story condo, downtown Toronto. Every time I drive by that.
For sure.
Right? I tell my wife today, she's like, I know. You tell me every fucking time we drive by. Right? And now we have 2 kids, 6 and 9. I'm like, we know, Daddy. We get it. Like, you appreciate that because you're in the industry. You get that. I do it organically as many other construction professionals do. And this is the stuff that you're talking about that makes a big difference. Right?
Yeah.
Like, you're part of something greater than you. That building is not like 25 years old. Right. And it's still, I'm like, holy shit, there's Park Lake. Like, oh my God. It's
yeah. And you
crazy.
get to make a difference too. That one building may not make a significant difference 200 years from now, but development does drastically. And if you're a part of any of that development, you're a part of that ecosystem, right? So, that's huge, especially in like metropolitan areas. Every couple of years, that's always revamped. And if you're a part of that, you get to say whatever part of that you were a part of, you get to talk about for the rest of your life, probably.
Yeah.
That you don't get to talk about in any other trade, any other industry than the blue collar industry.
So when you talk about blue collar millionaires, wow, tongue twister there. You're really talking about sort of, hey, boys and girls, like, listen, get into. There's a lot of benefit from being in the trades. There's a lot they can actually accomplish. If money's your thing, then money can be your thing. If you want something more, there can be something more, right? Am I getting that right?
You're 100% right. Yeah, blue collar millionaire, it doesn't necessarily have to be the financial aspect of it. There's riches in so many other parts of it too. The gratification, the time freedom. It's very easy to make way more money than what you're going to get with a degree anyway. So of course that's a huge aspect of it. And some people want to have the argument, well, money isn't everything. Well, dude, you can do a whole lot of more cool stuff with money. You can do a whole lot more of whatever it is that you want to do with or without money, So
let's hang in this space for a second, right? Money's not everything. I got it. Money's a tool, right? Money's a tool to make you comfortable while you're here and to create experiences. And those experiences are this is all my opinion, but are those experiences what creates life for you, right? Yeah. What experiences do you want to have in life? Money's a tool to help you do that.
Mm-hmm.
Money creates better experiences.
Yeah. Vacations, to me, everything's an experience. Life is an experience because when I'm 90 years old, if I get to make it to that point, sitting in a nursing home somewhere, I'm not going to talk about the shit that I did my whole life or what I had to do. I'm going to talk about the experiences that I had. And I may not talk about every detail about it because to me, the detail isn't what's important. It's the whole realm of the experience, So you can't do any great, amazing experiences without money, right? I mean, I guess you could argue that fact, and you can, whatever is an amazing experience to you, you might can figure out a way to do it without money, but that's the easiest path for me, get a little bit of money and I'm going to get to go do a whole lot of cool shit, right?
Well, you level up your experiences, right? Experience can be different for everybody. And hey, at this time of life, this experience is serving me well. Cool, right? But it gets down to what's your drive, what's your desire, how far do you want to go? Like this is a really cool conversation. So how do you take this sort of philosophy, because I call this philosophy a way of life, and really demonstrate this to the organization that you lead?
What was the question? How can I demonstrate that?
Yeah. So like how do you demonstrate this to the organization that you lead? What's the messaging you share?
Yeah. So first of all, no one even knows about the opportunities here, right? Because there's not a person of influence who is able to show, especially younger folks, that are at a point in their life where they can choose which path they want to take, whether it be blue collar industry, getting out here and, working with their hands and being kinesthetic, or, going down a corporate path. There's no one here to show that it can be cool, that, there are opportunities here. So I'm hoping that having conversations with folks like yourself and just showing what we're doing here, what we're building, some of the opportunities that, we're getting to experience, just showing that people get to see that and maybe get a little more interested in it. I'll go stand in front of anyone that I can stand in front of and talk to them, folks at high schools, colleges, and show them the opportunities that can be had out here, instead of just the mindset that's been beaten into them about dirty hands and broken backs and empty wallets,
So yes, you're really talking about getting the awareness out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, which is really cool. And yeah, the vision is let's start this conversation, and let's flip the script on what's always been done. Look, I pivoted quickly, and I had some conversations earlier on in some earlier episodes with my 16-year-old cousin, and I say that purposefully because I also talk to my nephews who are 17, 18, like, hey boys, guys are finished high school or finishing. Anybody talk about construction? And they look at me like dumbfounded.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No.
Like, fuck.
Yeah.
You've gone through 4 years of. So they're telling we're really heavily, and nothing against the computer industry, right? Because computer industry is generating jobs we don't even know exist yet. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, cool, if that's your flavor, get into that. What I'm suggesting is that without those computer facilities, those buildings for other professionals, doctors, lawyers, accountants, and without construction professionals, none of that shit exists.
Exactly. All those folks have to work somewhere. Yeah. Without the building, without electricity, without plumbing, without HVAC, there's nowhere for them folks to be at, Yeah. And my message for sure is not, don't go to college and get a degree. Don't go work in corporate. Don't go work in crypto. You don't go work in digital. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you can do all that or work in the blue collar industry. The problem right now is the blue collar industry isn't even shown as an opportunity or a path, to take. Yeah. It's completely dismissed and pushed aside and said, in early, even in middle school, it's not even a conversation to be had. It's which college do you want to go to, Yeah.
So let's have an end conversation. Hey, have you ever thought of construction? Have you, driving a machine can be so wonderful, right?
Oh,
if
yeah.
you've never experienced it, you've never done it, then what the hell do you know, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Or even shown, that you could,
Yeah. Wow. Look, thank you. I love the background, grinding for greatness, and I'm following some of the episodes you're dropping, and they're actually tremendously wonderful. I think that they certainly turbocharge some energy for me. So thanks for doing what you do. And I'm bringing this up because I've heard you say that fall in love with the grind and it's no longer work.
Yeah,
and that's very different ideologies in the framework that. Sometimes we often hear where you always hear, fuck, I'm tired of the daily grind. And that narrative sort of rebounds and reverberates through sort of so many construction professionals. When you're really flipping the script and saying, no, fall in love with the grind. So it no longer becomes work. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So first of all, you can grind day in and day out and either love it or hate it. Sure. But at the end of the day, you have to figure out why you're grinding, right? Because it doesn't matter how much you love it. There's going to be days that fucking suck no matter what. Yeah. And if you don't know why you're doing that, then it's going to be really hard to get through those days. Well, if you can very methodically pinpoint why you're going to get up and grind every day, whether it be for your financial freedom, time freedom, the things that you want to gain from all those, if you can figure out why and you get up every day and then you fall in love with that grind to get the why, it's very, very easy to do. Maybe I'm just a workaholic. I just love getting up, doing everything that I do every day, going to the gym, working my ass off day in and day out, all because I know it gets me to a certain point, it gets me to where I want to be, and whether that's good or bad, every single day, I know I'm on the right track to go where I want to be, So falling in love with the grind, what I mean by that is falling in love with the trajectory, with the path that you're on, having that discipline, working that muscle out, continuing getting to your final destination of where you want to go. If you hate the grind, it's going to take a whole lot fucking longer to get there, because you're not going to work as hard, as fast, as motivated. You're not going to have a great attitude. That's going to reflect on everyone around you. They're going to be fucking miserable, and they're going to hate the grind,
Yeah. Well, I love what you say, right? Because that's what it is. It's the energy that resonates, right? It's
Yeah.
the energy that resonates like, Jonathan's fucking miserable to be around with. Why do I want to be around him? I mean, we know that there's some energy suckers and some energy givers, right? I mean, if you're going to be around people who are just going to suck your energy at some point in time, you're going to tap out and say thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you can only build, you can't build nothing great without a team. You can't build nothing great without people around you. And if you're going to be a miserable fuck all day, every day, then no one's going to want to be around you, and that just goes back to falling in love with the grind. If you don't love the grind and you're going to be miserable every day that you're getting up and going out and doing what you do, then nobody's going to want to be around you, and you can't build a great team. So you're not ever going to be able to do nothing great.
Yeah. And I love what time, because at no point in time are you talking like it's fall in love with the grind, which, if I unpack that, it's like you said, fall in love with the process, like why you're actually doing what you're doing. You're not saying there's going to be fucking rainbows, butterflies, and unicorns. Yeah. No, there's going to be shitty days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I heard you say, it's the discipline that keeps you going. It's the why. Why the fuck do I do this? And why does it matter?
Mm-hmm.
And that keeps you going.
Yeah, man. And I think that's the biggest point that's missed right there, is that everyone just kind of gets up and goes through their routine every day and, brings home their paycheck on Friday and pays their bills and knows that they have to get back up and do it again next week because they have certain bills that they have to pay and this lifestyle they have to maintain. And that's just the constant path that they're going to stay on. So, no matter how fun work is, which we all know it's not the funnest shit to do all day, every day,
right.
There's going to be days you got to work in the cold and the rain and shitty conditions and the mud, and those aren't the funnest days. But backing up, if you are on a consistent path here and you know that you want to get to a certain point and have measurable goals along the way, it's a whole lot easier to get up every day and go through that Monday through Friday grind and do the shitty days, do the rain days, do the mud days, do the freezing cold. It's 8 degrees out here. We don't want to go out and work, but we know where we want to go. We have goals set that we have to hit. And, if we have those goals set and we're going to go out and work in the 8 degrees, it's a whole lot easier than doing that just for our paycheck on Friday, Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to come back to something because it resonated when you finished that sort of thought, and it was, you talk about we, so it's always a very inclusive thing. And you talked about, nobody ever achieved anything great by themselves. You got a great team of people around you, right?
Yeah.
And so when you talk about the construction world, which is, again, traditional ideologies and metrics are always about, not always, but you've seen some egotistical people say, I created this, I did this, go fuck yourself, buddy.
Yeah,
go fuck yourself.
For sure.
Because you didn't do it all. You ain't the next savior.
Mm-hmm.
You had a shit ton of people behind you, beside you, in line with you. You failed to recognize. You never, our conversation this far has never been about you. It's always been about other people. You use the framework of we. And so when you talk about, a team of people with you in the construction, like, what does that really mean to you? What does it mean when you put people first in construction for you?
I'm very intentional to always say we. I don't care if I did go do it by myself, because there's always someone to support me, no matter what. And I'm very intentional on that, because I've never done anything up to this point by myself. Sure. There's always been someone with me to help me, whether it's even from day one when we started, and there's someone there just to be sure I don't cut my fingers off, while I'm working. So being intentional with that and knowing that I want to build this thing out and I want to continue to grow, I obviously can't do that by myself. So you kind of have to wear a couple different hats as a business owner. You have to focus on what you're doing throughout the day to build the business. You have to focus on what you're doing throughout the day to build your team. You have to focus on what you're doing every day throughout the day for collections, etc. But one of the most important aspects of that is building that team out. It's, I don't want to say easy, but it's one of the easier parts to go out and complete the job, right?
Of course.
Once we know what we need, what we're doing with the tools, that's really easy to figure out. Building that team out is what's a little more tricky, because then you're dealing with emotions, you're dealing with people's families, you're dealing with people's situations, you're having to deal with empathy and systems and procedures and building everything out so that it all works for everybody, so that everybody's happy in your ecosystem, in your culture, and that takes a lot of attention, a lot of intention, and a lot of energy, to focus on that and make sure that what you're building, what you're creating, everybody is happy under that roof, And if they're not happy and you don't create the right culture, you're not going to attract more people to help build and grow your team.
Okay, so this is great, right? So let's talk about JC Property specifically. What do you do to attract the right people? What do you do to keep the people? What do you do to keep the people?
Yeah, so that is a very, very hard question to answer. There's no one thing that you can put your finger on, and I've interviewed tons of business coaches, business professionals, recruiting folks. No one can tell you, hey, this is the system that you have to build to create the system that is going to attract and retain amazing people. It's something that is constantly evolving because people constantly evolve.
Right.
So what we are currently doing, I'm happy to share that, is we are very intentional of creating a certain culture here. We create a culture where everyone wants to come in, do what they love to do all day, love to work with the people that's beside them, because no one wants to come into any job, no matter how much they love it, and work with people that they're miserable with, So we create the right culture. We display that culture, because if nobody knows what your culture is, then how are you going to attract people into that culture? We display it through marketing and everything. So recruiting and marketing work hand in hand together. Mm-hmm. And then as we interview folks for the position, because we have to attract them first with our culture, with the benefits, with pay, with vacations, with holidays, all the things that you can attract with. As we're interviewing, we try to be sure that the people that we're going to bring into our culture are the right fit, that they're not going to come in, one bad apple can ruin the bunch and create turmoil, again, because we want to work with people that we want to hang out with every day, So as we're bringing folks in, we're very intentional on who they are, what's important to them, make sure our core values align with their core values, and monitor that through the first 90 days. If you have core values, if you have mission, it's very easy to hire and fire off of those. And that's really what's going to protect your culture, So very intentional throughout the entire process. And then as you get those folks in, you got the right culture, you just kind of have conversations with everyone pretty regularly to be sure that they're happy with what's going on, because culture can change very quickly, and people can change, people's lifestyles can change, and the job has to reflect that. So it's a full-time gig, just recruiting and retaining,
Right. And this is why we're talking today, right? Because construction is about people. It always has been, always will be about people. I love what you said earlier. It's like the job, getting the job done, honestly, is probably the easiest part, because we know how the hell to get the job done. You get the right tools. We've done this 1,000 times, or we haven't. Even if we haven't done it, getting the job done is not the hard part. It's getting the right people.
You can go on YouTube and figure out how to get the job done now. You can't go on YouTube and figure out how to build a business.
So now you're talking about different things. You're talking about, connecting with people, checking in, right? Like, I love what you say when you say, we want to create a culture where people want to hang out. Isn't that pretty cool? Like, if you can work in the same, like let's talk about this, right? You work in the same space where you actually give a shit about the person beside you. It's like a franchise sports team, right? You're not there for yourself.
Yeah.
You're there for the guy to your left, and you're there for the guy to your right, and you're there, everybody's doing their part. And when you're a player, your captain is down and out, guess what happens? Everybody else around them supports that. So you're talking about creating an inclusive culture. Yeah. And everybody's opinion matters. You're not talking about walking and saying, okay, we got this job. Here's our fucking budget. Here's how we're going to do it. Let's rock and roll. No. It's a very different ideology.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you get so busy and things are moving so fast, it's really hard to stay attuned to that. A lot of times you do want to just run in and say, hey, we didn't get this job done. You need this, this, and this. I'm going to run out and go do another meeting with another crew. But if you don't have someone on your team that's kind of doing checks and balances with everyone to be sure that everyone has what they need, giving them the right tools that they need, making sure that they're happy with everything that they have, making sure that they're happy working shoulder to shoulder with the next guy, a lot of times we just had this conversation in a recruiting meeting the other day that, a lot of times you don't get the opportunity for someone to come to you and tell you, hey, man, I'm not happy because this, or this. They're just going to leave.
Right.
They don't want confrontation. So they're going to go try to find a better situation somewhere else, So if you're not actively going to them and saying, hey, man, do you have everything you need? Are you happy with everything? Is there anything I can do to help you? What do you guys got? What do you got going on at home? That's extremely important too, man. People need to be able to talk to one another about things that's bothering them, and if you're not kind of that, that backboard that they can bounce stuff off of, then, there's not really a great relationship there,
Yeah. That's instrumental. We all need a sounding board. We all know that. And the old adage of, holy shit, Jonathan, you showed up late today again. This is the third day in a row. You show up late again. Don't come back. That's out the window, guys.
Yeah.
Peel back the layers. Hey, Jonathan, you showed up late the last couple of days. Are you taking a lot of time off? Everything okay? What's going on? Look at that. Now we're having a different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's something that I struggled with really bad in the beginning was, I was on a hard strive to just build the business. And that's kind of how it was back in the day too, right? We had a huge bucket to pull people from. And, if someone wasn't working out, you just throw them back in the bucket and pull somebody else, but that's not today's world that we live in, and most good folks. So if you've attracted the right people and you've been sure that when you're hiring that your core values align and everything, most good folks are going to want to come in and give you 100% every day. And if something like that's happening, people are missing a lot of days or coming in late, there's probably really something else that's going on that's bothering them, and instead of just getting frustrated and wearing your business hat, you need to kind of take that off and sit down for a second and talk to them about what is really going on. It may be a really easy conversation. And for someone who is in the business owner's position, it may be a real easy fix that you can create for them, So slowing down and having those conversations, man, can really help your retention and culture, because that person may stay. You may be fussing at them and you guys have that tension because they're showing up and you guys fussing back and forth and stuff. And then your culture's ruined because of it, instead of you just sitting down and having that conversation, seeing how you can figure it out.
Right. Yeah. Break the barriers. Because the worst thing you can do is check out and stay, right? I'm going to fucking
That's
stay here.
That's the worst thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And for those folks out there listening, hey, John, that's really easy for you guys to talk about. It's really different to demonstrate. Well, I'm gonna ask you to dig in, because now I'm looking at you, John. Now it's, as a business owner, you're saying, look, I have a choice. I have a choice, and if I actually give a shit about people, right? Even on the days where you're mentally exhausted, you talk about recognizing that importance of checking in. Hey, what's really going on?
I would say to the person that's listening to this to say, hey, man, it's easy for you guys because of the position that you're in to have those conversations and, to build a different system. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not, man. It's not easy for me at all. I don't know if, the listeners have, took DISC assessments or personality assessments, but if you know about that, and I can tell you that my personality, I'm a high driver, which, to the folks that don't understand what that means, it means I want to be able to fly in, tell you what needs to be done, go out, go produce some more work somewhere else, go sell something somewhere else. I'm moving, shaking all the time, very high energy. So I don't like to slow down and have those conversations that are, you need to take a little more time with and have a little more empathy with and a little more sympathy with. That's not my personality at all. But I know that I cannot continue to grow this business if I just stay in the high driver mode all the time, You can also hire for those roles, which is something that we're doing right now. I'm hiring someone that is going to do nothing but have those conversations for me, to be sure that everybody here has everything that they need, everything that is going on that they're happy with, so that I can continue to stay in my high driver mode and continue to build the business, But I also have to recognize that, sometimes I still need to slow down and have those conversations with even my upper level management folks, So understanding people's personalities is really huge too.
Yeah. That's beautiful. There's a couple of key things that sort of jumped out at me. And one is that you've recognized where your strengths are and where you like to be. And you have a conscious decision to say, look, I'm either not going to do this, or I'm not an expert in, or whatever it is. I mean, so you're hiring somebody, right? And I want to talk about this because our conversation started like this before we push the record button today, which is, looking at your beautiful studio there and all your setup. And it's like, hey man, I don't fucking know how to do all this. So I get the right people who do, right? And that's the truth, right? It takes courage, vulnerability, and bravery to have the balls to say, look, I don't have all the answers. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to find the experts that do. So you're hiring somebody. And at the same time, you've also acknowledged that you've pivoted, you've grown. You're constantly shifting, right? You said earlier on, you changed your framework from, when people were not showing up to when they are showing up, and you're having different conversations. Like, that's not an easy thing to do. You're constantly growing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for the folks that are listening, in the beginning, there's two things. Number one, it's really hard for you to kind of release some of the responsibilities and stuff and let somebody else do some of the things. And you're kind of hard headed and think, well, I just want to do everything, especially if you're good at doing things, and that's where I was at. I tried to do everything, did the marketing, did the jobs, did the recruiting, did everything, and because I didn't want to release some of the responsibilities, because I was fearful that maybe this person wasn't going to do as good as I could do. But dude, you're not good at everything, chances are you're really good at only a couple things, and you might be okay. You might get by with doing the other stuff yourself. But number one, getting by isn't going to grow and build, so you need to hire the folks that are going to be able to do that. And number two, you need to focus on doing the couple things that you're really, really good at, and finding someone else who's really, really good at doing the things that you're not good at. You cannot outrun your weaknesses. It doesn't matter how good you are at selling, you can't continue to sell and build a business, with all your downfalls everywhere else that are chasing you, because there's a huge realm of things in your business that you need to do, and if you're good at sales and driving a team, but you're really bad at recruiting, follow-up, marketing, you can't sell and run the team fast enough to outrun your other 5 weaknesses. So you need to hire for those points, And at first that may be real hard to do, and you may think, well, I don't have the money to hire for all those positions. Right. But something that's really hard to recognize for a lot of folks, especially at a smaller scale, is that really good people do not cost you money. You can give them whatever salary you want to, and great people are going to produce that salary and then some. So don't be fearful, number one, to release some of those opportunities, some of those responsibilities to folks. And number two, don't be fearful to hire on, because good folks will produce their salary.
Holy shit. Like there's so many nuggets in exactly what you said. Like, good people will produce their salary and then some, right? Mm-hmm. And I love when you said, getting by isn't going to grow and build. Right.
Yeah.
So again, like you've constantly elevated and you've grown and you continue to. What do you do to sort of continue your personal growth? How do you stay on top of the game?
Well, man, I'm not an expert. I only know what I know, where I'm at, and to learn and to get to each plateau, each level, I have to get around other folks who have done it, or who are currently doing it, or can coach me on how to do it, which I'm not going to take any advice from someone who hasn't done it before.
Right.
Yeah. So I am very conscious about, like, kind of when I hit plateaus and even a little bit before them, to get around other folks who are at that next level, who are welcoming to teach me and coach me and help me along the way, whether it be personal development, business development, the skill sets. I'm always trying to educate myself in all 3 of those areas. And I pay a lot of money for it too. That's a lot of that stuff doesn't come for free. If you're hanging out with, really upper high level CEO type guys, their time is extremely valuable, and you need to pay them for it. And
Thank you.
if you don't get that information, you're not going to be able to continue to excel.
Look, you just touched a huge point, right? I mean, this is exactly what I do, right? And it's so powerful, right? When you're saying, look, couple of things. I'm not going to get coaching or advice from somebody who's never done it, right? You ain't going to go to I don't know, a guy who's never built a building and say, hey, how do I build a building?
Yeah,
right?
I'm not going to take financial advice from a financial advisor that owes money on their house still and in hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, right?
Yeah, perfect, right? And you, at the same time, you also know that being in the orbit of others, of those experts, of gaining that, there's a cost to that.
Yeah.
Right. Knowledge costs money. Consultants, like we live in the construction world. I can't pay. I'm not going to pay a consultant to do this. I'm not. Okay, man. Then you're going to get by. And we just talked about getting by. Ain't going to grow.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't going to build shit. You ain't going to grow shit. So look, do what you've been doing over and over. How's that working for you?
And you're probably going to make a bunch of mistakes, which cost you way more fucking money than if you would have just paid someone to teach you to do it or let them do it themselves. Go ahead and make the mistake. It's going to cost you a ton of time. It's going to cost you a ton of money, and you're going to look like a fucking idiot. Might as well pay someone else to teach you or do it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And you identified something else, that you look like a fucking idiot, which in the construction world, traditionally, historically, has been very egotistically driven and male dominated, and it's like people just draw swords and go, I didn't fucking make a mistake. I made this decision based on pass the blame, right? It's easy to sort of point the finger until you have the fucking courage, bravery to stand up and look in the mirror and go, where did I screw up?
Yeah, just fucking own it, man. That's one of our core values, is accountability. And if you can't own your mistake, we don't want you here. Absolutely, for sure, we do not want you here, because we're all going to make mistakes, man. I make mistakes every single day, and if we can take accountability and we can learn from them, we don't continue to make the same mistakes, amazing, because that's the best lesson you can learn. But if you're not going to take accountability on the mistake that you made or the lesson that you learned, and you're going to try to pass the blame on someone else, you're probably going to continue to make those same mistakes. And then you create a bad culture, because then everyone's pointing fingers at each other. No one wants that. And I'm not going to have folks around here that aren't going to take the accountability on it.
Right. Look, there's something magical. I'm going to use that word, but not necessarily true. But when if I turn to you and say, John, man, I fucked this up pretty good. Yeah. And here's what's going on, and here's how we're going to solve it. And what are you going to, like? Okay, Jonathan, you fucked up. We're human beings.
Yeah.
What's next? How do we get through this together? Rather than, John, this happened, but it wasn't my fault. It was this guy's fault. You can create and all it's going to do is just frustrate you and say, shut the fuck up and get the hell out. Yeah,
get the fuck out of here, for sure. Yeah. You can ask any of my employees anytime they've ever brought something to me that's broke, which is very common with what we do. I primarily do grade and excavation and demolition, site development. So we work with a lot of heavy equipment. Large trees are being pushed over. It's very, very dangerous what we do. And things regularly get broke, and you can ask any of my employees if they've ever brought me to anything that was broken, and said, hey man, I fucked up. This is what happened. It's never going to happen again. How can I take responsibility for it? I've never made them pay $1 for anything that they fucked up. It's my responsibility, I feel like, in that role, but they've all signed a piece of paper too, saying that they will take all accountability for anything that they fuck up.
Yeah.
Now, if they hide it and I go find it, completely different motherfucking story.
Yeah.
At that point, you got two options. One, you leave the site, and when I say leave the site, I mean you're done here. You're terminated because you hit it. You didn't take accountability, which is unethical to me. Mm-hmm. Ethics is one of our core values. Or you can pay for your mistake and you're still going to get a write-up, but again, if you own it and you bring it to me and it's not costing me any more time and material and downtime, and we can get it fixed immediately and keep going, great. But when you hide it, and then it can potentially cause more failures, more downtime down the road, I don't even care about the downtime or the failures and all that stuff. That's just more stuff that I can kind of pile on.
Yeah.
It's really the accountability that really aggravates me about it,
Look, I love this, right? And you're talking about big deal. And you're not talking about $100 Mercedes. You're talking about big equipment, big machinery, big deals. Everything is thousands of dollars. Something breaks in a machine, you're thousands of dollars, like tens of thousands of dollars.
There's nothing on a machine that you can damage that's not several $1,000s.
Yeah. Right. And the way you describe that is saying, okay, lesson learned, right? How do we get past this? What do we do to fix it? And the worst thing is it's no different. Look, I come back to children. It's no different than raising children, right? Hey, don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove, don't touch the hot stove. They touch the hot stove. Why? Because they want to learn, right? Then you have a conversation about it, right? But again, it gets down to accountability. It gets down. You want people to learn because that's where the creativity sparks from. And you want accountability. I fucked up. I touched the hot stove, even though they told me not to.
Yeah.
I touched the hot stove. Am I going to touch a burning hot stove again? No. Right. And now I have the knowledge to educate, my sister. Hey, don't touch the stove. Hey, don't drive the machine this way. I fucked it up. I flipped it. I rolled it. I did whatever. Right. Yep. So now there's a lesson learned. It's going to stick with that person for the rest of their life. And by the way, they know that in the background, John and the organization has got my back. So long as I do things within the boundaries and the parameters and the agreements that we all subscribe to, then we're going to thrive together. And when we fuck up, we're going to fuck up together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's that, just everyone having that accountability over the entire thing. I mean, someone can very easily get killed in just a second with what we do.
Right.
And if you're careless, that can happen in a second. And dude, I don't want to live with that the rest of my life as the business owner, whether I was the person who did it or not, Yeah. And, damaging a panel or something on the machine or breaking the glass, from a mistake is really just like a small example of something that can happen on the job. And then how you handle that shows me how much you care and your accountability. So, we can have panels broke all day long. If someone's caring about that and accountable about that, then I know it's probably not going to escalate further from there. But if someone's careless when that happens, it's only a matter of time before something very catastrophic is going to happen, because that carelessness is going to carry on and it's going to continue to build and build and build, because that also shows them that, we really don't care if you're careless or not,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if we don't hold them responsible for how much they care, and that continues to grow, and then there is something that's, catastrophic out there, then that's really on us,
That's wonderful the way you describe that, right? You're subconsciously, if the organization doesn't give a shit and doesn't care, then you're subconsciously sending a message that, hey, we'll cover it up, we'll fix it. So when something big happens, and look, it's not talked about, but it happens more times than I'd like to even admit it. Is the construction world is notorious for burying shit, covering shit up. Yeah. It's fucking disgusting sometimes. Like, I've been part of job sites where people have actually died. Jump to their death. And what happens, like, the job site shuts down for a day, the ministry comes in, does their things, and then it's like reopens up. There's no fucking accountability. There's no check-in. You're subconsciously saying the organization running that site, the general contractor, whoever it is, or whatever it was in this case, the developer is subconsciously saying, we don't give a fuck. And as long as it doesn't damage our reputation downstream, we're going to cover it up. You're pulling the handbrake and saying, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah,
take the fucking accountability, because there's a difference between making a mistake and then carelessness, right? And if you don't give a shit and you're constantly careless, then what message are you demonstrating to others? So thank you for talking about that.
Yeah, and that's just going to trickle down the line, and as it goes down the line, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So you're only one person that's not showing carelessness, but as that trickles down the org chart, and you've got 200 laborers out there that don't give a shit, and a total entity of 500 employees, dude, you've just built a terrible ecosystem of folks who really don't give a fuck. And what we do, man, it's like you said, man, I hate to even talk about it, but it's not uncommon at all for someone to get killed, and that's because of carelessness. Typically, I've seen it myself 7 or 8 times, and there's never been one scenario that was like, man, this was just a really unfortunate event. It's always been because someone didn't care about something, someone didn't do what they needed to do for safety measures, for the situational awareness. And unfortunately it led to that event, But if folks care, that's not going to happen. You know, if folks are intentional with what they're doing while they're on the job, which is another one of our core values, intent, being where your feet are at, paying the fuck attention while you're there, you know, watching all your surroundings, making sure the person beside you is doing what they need to be doing to be safe and not put you or themselves in danger, then that's just going to snowball, man, you know?
Yeah.
And really it's up to us at the top to control that, you know? And dude, it goes all the way back to hiring with those core values. You know, if we're being sure that we're bringing the right people in and the core values align with theirs and they understand what we're about, and we continue to enforce that while they're here, and we show them that in our culture shows them that the folks around us care, you know, it's pretty doggone easy not to let it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so curious. I know that, you know, part of who you are, you reside, you spend a lot of time in the racing world, right?
Yeah.
I've learned that from learning about you. And so I invite you, first of all, tell our listeners out there what kind of racing you're into.
Yeah. So I've raced motocross and hare scrambles at a pro level for the last 12 years, up to 2 years ago. I stopped race, broke both my legs 2 years ago in the off season training at one time, which was fucking miserable. If you've never been able to get around, you know, if one broke, you know, arm or leg is a bitch, but two of them at one time is really a pain in the ass. But I kind of made the decision then, in conjunction with having twin boys and building this business, that, you know, maybe I shouldn't be doing that all the time. So I just transitioned into racing side by sides. That's something that's kind of new and upcoming, and got a lot of interest, a lot of money back behind it. So we're doing a lot of that now too.
Thank you for bringing us into the world. Like that's huge.
I wasn't able to completely hang my dirt bike helmet up, so I still ride a little bit there and still compete a little bit here and there, but not trying to win a championship, you know, annually like I was before.
Well, so I'm very curious. This is very important to me. You talk about the racing world. And so what has racing taught you about how to show up to life?
A ton, man. A ton. That's a great question. So, you know, if you're going to go out and you're going to race every weekend in hopes that at the end of the year you get to put together a winning championship, you have to be extremely committed throughout the entire year. There's no days off of that. You know, that is an entire lifestyle. So you have to train every single day. You have to eat right every day. You got to go to the gym. You got to be on the bike every single weekend. You have to be competing, whether it's one of your events that you're trying to compete for the championship or not. You have to be competing every weekend to keep racing at the level of intensity that you need to be racing at. So the dedication and commitment that it takes for that, also, while you're racing, it takes a huge level of commitment, because every single time you come around a corner, the track has changed. There's 200 bikes that have went across the track, you know, so the track's completely different, and you don't know what you're coming into as you're going into or coming out of a corner. So you have to, racing at the level that we raced at, you have to be very committed in going in and out of those corners, hitting jumps. You have to have a high level of commitment, you know. So I think that's the biggest thing, man. My biggest takeaway from it is the dedication and the commitment, which running a business, you know, a lot of folks think that they're going to go start a business because it's going to be less work than going and being an employee for someone. And that's a huge, huge, huge common misconception, that you think that you can turn the energy level down when you get to go start a business. But starting, owning, operating, growing, scaling a business is 24/7 work. And it takes high levels of energy to stay on top of everything that you need to be doing to continue running and scaling a business. So the dedication from racing, I think, has helped me tremendously when starting a business, to know, like, this is 24/7 work, you know, which racing and competing and anything that you're doing at that level, it doesn't matter what you're doing, especially what sport you're playing, it takes that level of commitment and dedication every single day too.
Yeah. And I'm sure not, you know, there's days where it's like, fuck, it gets tough. Like running a business, it gets tough.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, the parallels between the racing world and the professional world, right? You know, you're dedicated, you're committed, but I also heard you say things like, hey, look, I have to train myself. I have to eat properly. I have to make sure I show up properly to the race. No different than showing up professionally. I got to make sure that I show up professionally. And by the way, you're accountable to everybody in that race orbit, whether that be the other 199 guys that are racing beside you or the teams or everything else. Like there's the accountability again.
Yeah. That's what I loved about dirt bike racing is, you know, when you get to a pro level, you do have a team behind you that helps you out. But when you're on the bike, dude, it's just you. So if you go out there and you fuck up and you blow the race, especially when there's a team behind you, helping you and supporting you, dude, it's all on you. Everything is on your shoulders. You know, you're carrying yourself through that race. If you fuck up, make a mistake, that's on you. If you win the race, that's on you too, you know? And also with racing, no matter what kind of racing it is, when you're moving at the speeds that we're moving at, you have to make not even split second decisions. It's like not even conscious decisions that you are making constantly, you know? So in business, it's the same way. I mean, there's so many things that come at you all day long that you have to make instantaneous decisions on. If not, they're costing you money, and you got guys standing around and things are happening. Customers aren't satisfied because you're pushing deadlines back. So you have to be able to make the right decisions very quickly, you know? And that's something that racing will teach you very quickly. If you don't make the wrong decision, it's going to put you on your head, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, nobody's saying you got to be perfect either. I'm sure part of the growth process in racing is you make the wrong decision, you fuck up, and you learn from it. And we just talked about this with machines. Hey, man, you fucked up. Well, you learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went in the corner. I'm not a racer, so, you know, and just, you know, hypothesis, you know, I went in the corner too hard. Mm-hmm. And, you know, whatever, I fucked up. Well, you fucked up.
Yeah, and then the recovery, right? So
right.
Let's say you made that shitty decision. You fucked up. You didn't hit a jump fast enough. You hit a jump way too fast. You went into a corner too fast. You underestimated the hill climb, you know, and you fucked up. Now you lost some time. Well, you got to go make that time back up, which means you got to ride twice as hard. You got to ride twice as fast. You got to make decisions twice as fast. You got to make decisions even better, you know. And then on top of that, a lot of that, to make that time up, you have to take huge risks, especially in dirt bike racing. You know, you may have to put a couple of jumps together and hit a triple or hit a quad, you know, that you didn't want to really hit. But if you're going to make the time up, that's what you got to do. You know, you might have to make a hot line through the woods, you know, in a corner that's not really there, and you have to try to look for those. You know, in business, you're going to fuck up and you're going to slow things down and you're going to delay and you're going to have financial burdens, you know. But you're going to have to take risk, and you're going to have to be willing to do things that you didn't want to do to overcompensate to get back to where you were, you know? And that's a huge thing. I think with people, especially starting out in business, is that they want to sit around and plan and strategize. And dude, that's not, especially in the blue collar industry, man, you know, in business period, but especially in the blue collar industry, you don't get to sit around and strategize all day long because it's not a perfect fucking world. You know, you're going to go out here and you're going to create some plan. You're going to start it, and something immediately is going to hit you in the chin, and you're going to have to be able to very quickly change, innovate, pivot, figure it out and get through it and keep moving. So fuck a plan, man. Just start working and be decisive and be able to make quick decisions. That's the simplicity of it, you know?
Oh, I love that. And, you know, thank you for trying racing like that. It's resiliency in the moment. Oh, I fucked up. How do I keep going? Right. And then you talk about like, stop sitting around fucking planning the race, get on the damn track and race and fuck it up and keep going. Right. Shit. I fucked that up. I gotta do a double, whatever it is. Right. You hit 2 jumps in a row. You got to take those risks, and it's either going to work or it's not. And there's only one way to find out. You can plan it and go, okay, just fucking ride, go.
Yeah. I think another huge thing too, man, is perseverance, dude. Let's say you do make the bad mistake and it puts you on your head. And man, I've finished races with broken fucking bones before, you know? I mean, and that's a whole nother level of like heart and everything, you know what I mean? But there's a lot of times too that you know, no matter when you hit the ground, it fucking hurts whether you broke something or not, you know, especially at the speeds that we're moving at. And when you get back up and now you're having to take risks to catch up, you're having to ride harder, and dude, you're fucking hurting, man, you know? Yeah. Well, that's a testament of perseverance. And that's another thing that you have to have with running a business too, man, because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have setbacks. And if you want to continue a business, are you going to fold it up and pack it up when you have those mistakes? Or are you just going to put your nose down and keep grinding, you know?
Yeah, thank you for that. Right, and just to volley externally for a moment, I love that perseverance because there are shit times, right? And unfortunately, we're still in an industry where there are some I don't know how else to say it, to have dickheads out there that think that it's okay not to pay the contractor, right? So you have to we're not over that hurdle yet. One day we will be, but there's still that perseverance of holy shit, I didn't get paid. Holy shit, this didn't go as planned. You know, what are you going to do? You're going to roll up and cry about it, or you persevere through it, right? And I love what you talk about, how you've driven through a race with broken bones. That it sucks hitting the ground when you're in top condition. Imagine when you have a or multiple broken bones.
Yeah, I at all levels of my business, even today, there's always so many fucking obstacles of getting paid. You know that you don't foresee. So, for example, like, I've been screwed before on jobs where, we got to the end of the job and the customer's like, hey, number one, either I don't have the money to pay you, which they normally won't tell you. They'll probably act like they're not happy with the work because it's a pride thing, right? To say, hey, something happened and I now don't have the money to pay you. So they're going to act like they're dissatisfied, which is a whole nother mental game on you, because you think, well, dude, I delivered, I thought what was a great product and this guy's not happy with it. What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Well, dude, you're budgeting and planning and hoping that you're going to get paid that day that you're done with the job, or 10 days out or 30 days out or whatever it may be. And that doesn't happen. Well, man, that's a fucking hit, man, especially when you're started, and you may be doing bank deals. I mean, that's something right now. As a matter of fact, I've been on the computer all morning communicating with the bank who was supposed to pay me 3 weeks ago, and there's issues with extensions and this and that. And it's like, holy shit, man, you never planned for that. So you just got to be ready to move and pivot and shift and shake and work it out,
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. That maybe leads into there's another sort of question that sort of shows up for me. And I've actually heard you talk about it on Grinding for Greatness. And it's, is there a difference in your opinion between competence, confidence, and cockiness in construction?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, man, because there's a huge difference, I think. So number one, you can have conversations with folks who carry themselves with an arrogance or confidence, whether they are or not competent, and that can be false. So you have to really try to be able to read between the lines and figure out number one, at first, if the person's even competent. Because a lot of folks will come out here and absolutely bullshit. Yeah, I have to stand in front of a customer a week, I feel like, that's been taking advantage of someone who said that they were competent and came and tried to do the job and didn't do a great job, and now we're having to fix it. So there's people that communicate throughout the day, all day long, that are not competent people in what they're talking about.
Right.
Now, if you have a little bit of knowledge in whatever it is that you're talking about, you can usually probably weed through that pretty quickly, And if they're not competent, then let's not even consider the other two, whether they're cocky or confident, But
sure.
Let's say you are communicating with a competent person and, you do think that they understand what they're talking about. There is a difference between cocky and confidence. Confidence is, I know how to do this. I've done it before. No problem at all for me to handle this. Cocky is, I can probably go and do that. Don't have experience in it, but I can do it. And I think those two are pretty easy to identify. But some people, I think, struggle with identifying the two, and some people will mistake the two. Some people will mistake arrogance with that and ego. And I think that's the biggest thing with the separation between cocky and confidence is an ego. The confident person isn't speaking with their ego. They're speaking from what they know with knowledge. The cocky person is speaking entirely with their ego, whether they do or don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So that's how I would break the three differences down.
Interesting, right? And unfortunately, we're in a time and space where we see a lot more cockiness enter the workspace, and it's, further to what you're talking about, where you're taking over jobs because somebody was super cocky and said, fuck, I can do that.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the competence, the skill sets to even know what the hell they were doing.
Some people are just entirely fucking delusional, man. They don't have the competence There's zero competence, but they have so much cockiness, not confidence. They have so much cockiness that they're going to go try it anyway. And really, I think just blow all caution to the wind and don't give a fuck what the end result to the customer is, you know? Because if they don't know what they're doing, but they're willing to try anyway and have nothing to back that up, it's probably going to be a bad result for everybody involved, you know? But the person who's competent and confident, 9 times out of 10, they're going to deliver a great experience.
Well, and, you know, does the game change when there's some transparency, right? Because, yes, hey, we all want to learn sometimes. So, you know, if I've never done it before, I do need to learn. But, you know, is there a difference with transparency to say, hey, I haven't yet done this? You know, I'm learning it or whatever. Does that change the game?
100%. Yeah, for sure. There's been plenty of times customers have come to me and with something new that I've never done, and I'll just tell them immediately, hey, I've never done that before. You know, I can probably get through it. It looks like a pretty simple process. I'll do all the research I can, but I want to set the right expectation up front. I've never done it before. You know, I'm confident, yes, that I think I can get through it. But the person who doesn't have that transparency to say, I've never done it before, I hope that I can get through it correctly, but let me set the right expectation. That's the cocky person that's just going to say, oh yeah, we can do that. No problem. You know?
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying. Like, that just even settled differently with me. There's a difference between, you know, the cocky guy's going to walk away and go, fuck, how the hell are we going to do? Yeah. I can do this. I can walk away and goes, how the fuck am I going to do this? Versus, hey, I haven't yet done it. I have the confidence. I think I can do it.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll learn how to do it. And now the expectations are set. So now there's a different level of, and communication changes. You know, you're there with the owner going, okay, we tried it this way. It doesn't seem to work. Let's pivot. Let's shift. Let's modify. Right.
Yeah. And then, you know, you can kind of set your ego to the side too, then, you know, if you're transparent up front and say, hey man, you know, I've never done this before, you know, let's get through it together. If something doesn't work out, at least you told them up front, hey, I've never done this before, and we're going to try to get through this together, instead of it not working out and be like, well, fuck it, this is your fault, you know, 'cause that's what happens then, right? Yeah. It's the finger pointing thing that starts.
Yeah, it's a finger pointing, and then, you know, then it spirals out of control. Then it's like, well, fuck you, I'm not paying you, fuck, and then. So it's like, flip the script, do it differently, and show up differently. Thank you. I mean, you've taken us down a wonderful path. This is great. You know, there's so much I could talk to you for hours. This is great, and there's a couple of last thoughts that are sort of buzzing around my head, and they're just fun thoughts. The point is that we know that the words we use shape our reality. I think we've covered a lot of that in this conversation, and how you know, the self-talk, the way you speak to yourself, the way you speak to your team, the way you speak to others, the way you speak to clients. We've simply demonstrated that with confidence, cockiness, and competence. All that to say, if there was one word, one phrase, something that you could eliminate from the English language, you think it would be a game-changing thing, what would it be?
Man, that's a great question. I wasn't prepared for that. Something that I don't want to hear anymore from the English language, right?
Yeah, a word or a phrase that sort of just like irks you the wrong way.
Not my fault.
Not my fault. Yeah. Look, just how does that change things? If that no longer exists, like, where it's not my fault, like, well, this happened, right? Oh, we fucked up. I made a mistake here, and here's what I could have done differently. Nowhere in the language is like, it's not my fault. No, here's what I could have done differently. Yeah.
So that's actually something we're going to talk about on one of our next podcasts. Is the accountability, responsibility, which then is going to lead into victor or victim.
Right. Know? Yeah, of course.
The person who says not my fault all day is a fucking victim.
Yeah, victim mindset.
Chop it up to however you want to, but that person is a fucking victim, and that's how they're going to live their entire life. And that is the number one motherfucker I don't want around me all day, every day. Don't ever be
right? Energy fucking sucking. Energy fucking. Yeah. You know, the world is evil, and everybody's out to get me and poor me. But shut the fuck up. Take some action.
Yeah. Your reality.
Stop being such a bitch about it.
Yep.
Look, you know, I get passionate about that because that's something
me too.
That's something that drives who I am. When I take into not only the professional world, but the coaching world, the you know, coaching athletes. Like, shut the fuck up. Stop. Poor me. Take fucking accountability. You fucked up. Yeah, you could have done this differently.
Yeah.
Yes, this happened. This happened. So what? Now what? Like, let's pivot around it.
Yeah,
Listen,
we've all had a certain level of tragedy in our lives, man. You know, whatever that may be for you, you know, because it's always different for everybody. But dude, so fucking what, man? You know, how are you going to change from that? You know, how are you going to move forward from that? What are you going to learn from that? How is that going to alter the rest of your life? Is it going to be good or is it going to be bad? And the reason it's good or bad is your mindset of whether you're the victor or victim. You know, I can get on a real rampant of that, man. You know, it's probably not something you want to go down that path today, but, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, man, because that's something that's extremely important, I think, to everything that we've talked about today. The person that's around you that is not ever going to take accountability or responsibility, that's the person you always need to be watching out for. You know, I'm sure everybody that's listening to this has heard you're the sum of your 5 friends. Well, if one of your friends is the not my fault person, you need to get them out of your fucking environment immediately.
Yeah, and you can do it. Like, you don't, sometimes it's harder said than, I get that. Doesn't mean I love you or I appreciate you from a distance. Thank you, but not right now. Like, just keep them at a distance. I'm, you know, we could talk about this all day, but I'm going to sum it up as thank you for creating an episode. I know I've talked about it. It's part of my life. Talking about educating people on thinking differently. I'm glad that you're going to do an episode on that. I think that there's a boatload of people who sometimes just need a fucking 2x4 to the head to shake them up.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
I say that with compassion, and sometimes we all need it, right? Like, just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I get so passionate about it. I prefer to be the person to give the fucking 2x4 to them. You know what I mean? Like, just open your eyes a little bit, man. You know, just open your fucking eyes and see the opportunity, you know?
All right, well, thank you. Listen, last question. Top of your head. What do you think construction needs more of?
Young guys and girls that are interested in getting into the field, man. You know, people, period. It needs people, you know, there, like I said at the very beginning of this, there's a huge opportunity out there and someone needs to take advantage of it. You know, it's the folks who are in it now are getting older and older and older, and there's not new young folks coming into it. So that opportunity, there's a huge gap of opportunity there that people can take advantage of.
Thank you, John. That sums it all up. You know, that's beautiful how we started with that and we're going to finish with that. I truly appreciate you. This has been great. Yeah. Thanks for taking the time to do this.
Thanks for having me on, man. Thanks for taking the time to get my word out.
Beautiful. All right, I pushed the stop button. That was fucking amazing.